Okay, in this second bowing workshop, we're going to talk about another kind of sawing, which is sawing in circles. In Kentucky tunes, a lot of the fiddlers try to get their notes going string to string. There's a lot more of that string crossing than there is in some styles, where you stay longer on one string and you don't do quite as much crossing. In this style, your bow's going in circles instead of back and forth. You're going from string to string, and so your bow is going to be going like this, a circle like that. Now that was down bow. I do mine up bow, but you'll do yours down bow probably. Some of us have to be different, and you want to practice that. It's important to do that where your bow's balanced. Don't do it close to the frog, but do it above the center of the bow. And keep your bow straight. Practice this with your bow straight. Do it in front of a mirror. You don't want your bow getting that way or that way. That causes a lot of squeaks. You want to keep it perpendicular and get used to that. And a good way to practice this would be to do it on double stops instead of the open strings, and then you can practice your intonation at the same time. A D chord, a G chord, C chord. So you can practice your intonation and your bow circles at the same time. Nice, relaxed wrist. So one of the keys to a lot of the fiddlers I like is, if you listen real close, you'll find that they don't slur on it. They never slur on a string crossing. Now, in some styles you do. Some individual fiddlers do. They do that little wavy bow, and they're crossing strings and getting the notes on alternate strings with their bow going in one direction. And that's a nice little lick, but it doesn't give you that edge that I like. I try to confine my slurring to when I've got a bunch of notes on one string, and when I cross strings, I always change bow direction. That seems a little bit counterintuitive till you get used to it, but then when you do get used to it, you hear there's a whole style there that's based on that. And it may be, I don't know, maybe the old black fiddle style that was in Kentucky. There's certainly a lot of that in the bluegrass region of the state. So we're going to bow every note here in these string crossings. So here's how it fits into Angelina Baker. There in the middle, you've got a bow circle on that D chord, and that I call that Kentucky lick number 1. It's just fingers 1 and 3. And if you want to practice that over and over, and the purpose of this is to get you used to not slurring on a string crossing, but saw every one of those notes. So it's one bow circle on that double stop, the D and the F sharp. Then another bow circle, same two strings, open, and then resolve it with another bow stroke back to the D. Now to practice it over and over, you'll double that last note, and that gets your bow turned around to do it again. Because I want to get in the habit of doing these string crossings going the same direction every time. If you're down bow, you'll start down bow, double. You want to be consistent with that, because later on there are a lot of tunes where that crossing pattern gets pretty complicated, and you want to be consistent and always do the hard ones going the same direction, like Martha Campbell. George Hawkins bragged he could play Martha Campbell backwards and forwards, but I don't think most people could do that. So here's Angelina Baker again. So that lick is just, it's pentatonic. If you were a northern fiddler, you might put the C sharp in there and it would sound like this. But that doesn't sound Kentucky. That's what I hear. All right, here's another tune from Clyde Davenport that's got another kind of string crossing in it, where we're gonna saw across 3 strings. Cornstalk fiddle and a shoestring bow. I'll start on the high part, start on the open E and go down in the key of G. Now on the low part, you got something similar to what we did in Angelina Baker. Now right there, I keep my 3rd finger down, and that's something else you want to get used to when you're doing all these string crossing patterns, because a lot of them do the lower note, which is the G note here, you keep coming back to it while your your first finger is going on and off on the A string. So you want to get used to leaving the lower finger down if you don't have to pick it up for something. So right there, I go E. Now that little roll down here, putting that little roll down and back up onto the front end gives you some more notes to work with to get your bow straightened out going forward, so you can go into that crossing lick. And that's something else you want to do. You want to think, how do I get my bow going into those crossing licks the same direction every time? Now on the high part of this tune, there's another kind of crossing. It's a little bit harder. Right there you go G, B, open E, and you'll want to slur that, but you try to bow every one of those notes. There are other tunes that do that in Kentucky, but this is an example of doing it with your bow, not with your fingers. Earl called fiddlers who did more notes with their fingers, sort of long bow fiddlers who did more slurring, he called them finger fiddlers. And I think he meant that as a term of contempt. So here it is, the high part. Start on the open E and go down. G, B, E. So that'll give you a little bit of practice with string crossing, and the idea there is, no matter how weird it feels at this time, make yourself bow every note, and it'll loosen you up and get your bow doing some things that you'll have to do later on if you want to play tunes like Martha Campbell and some of those Doc Roberts tunes. All right.